church, this community of faith, has an opportunity in the world to be a rock and a beacon. I think those are our two biggest jobs, to be a rock and a beacon. That is not only what we might do, that is what we are doing. We're particularly good at the rock part. We have been here, that too. We have been here in this spot for a long time. You can be pretty sure that on a Sunday morning, there will be people here doing something. And that you could come at almost any time and drop in and stand on the rock. We do that very well. And we've done that for a long time. And I actually think we're pretty good at being a beacon as well. Well, what is the difference here between being a rock and being a beacon? You know, part of the rock part is the place where people come. People come to us. We'll create this safe space, this holy place where people can come and be healed, to celebrate, to share their lives, and to have their lives witnessed by God. But to be a beacon says something about looking outward, shining our light outward. So here's what Jesus says. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hid, nor do folks light a lamp and put it under a bushel, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. Let your light so shine before all, that they may see your good works and give glory to your God who is in heaven. So actually he uses several metaphors in here that we're all quite familiar with. We will let our little light shine, won't we? Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. We're not going to put it under a bushel. Oh no. Oh no. We're going to let it shine. But you know, we are in some ways a kind of a shy people. So we are sort of willing to let our light shine. But you know, we've been told for a long time, be modest and be unassuming and be a little bit quiet and don't take too much attention and all of that stuff. In Australia, they call it the tall poppy syndrome. Like if the poppy grows too high, it's too easy to lop it off. So we're a little bit shy with our light. So it's that, okay, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. But I think we need to find a hill. I think we need to all get together. I think we all need to bring our lights. And I think not just those little wimpy ones. We need those bright ones where people will say, oh, I see that light. I can see that because it's so big and so strong and so compelling. So rather than being shy about it, I think we should turn our light outward into the world because we have so much to offer. Now, this idea of the city on the hill is an idea that's been bandied about in all sorts of settings. It comes from this scripture, but it was also lifted up by John Winthrop, who was one of those early Puritans in Massachusetts. And he actually wrote about this idea of the city on the hill even before he got to the hill. He was on the boat, they say, or even before he got on the boat, before he was saying, we're going to come to this place and we're going to create a city on the hill. Now, Ronald Reagan kind of famously made it a shining city on the hill, which isn't too surprising because if you look in the scripture, this idea of the light and holding your light up and the city on the hill are both right there together. Why would you not think of it as a shining light on the hill? And that's fine too. And actually, if you go back and read some of Ronald Reagan's words about this, they're quite inspiring. They're quite inspiring. He says, and he's describing this city, if there had to be city walls, the walls had doors, and the doors were open to anyone with the will and the heart to get here. That's an interesting idea, isn't it? But the city on the hill. So there are two parts, really, to this idea of the city on the hill, both in the way it's described in Scripture and what John Winthrop was talking about. Because at one level, when you're on the hill and you've got your light shining and you know you're sharing, you're being obvious and open to the world, that's part of it. I'm going to share my light. I'm not going to hold my light in. I'm going to share my light. But the other side of the idea, and this is something that John Winthrop talked about, he said, you know, if your city is on the hill, everyone can see what you're doing. And of course, because we use a Puritan, the backstory on that was probably, we better behave. But that's a good thing to do, isn't it? When you're standing on a hill, you can't hide what you're doing, so you better be proud of what you're doing. You better be able to stand up there with pride and with assurance, and to know that people are watching you, that you are an example. You are a voice in the world that people might be looking up to. Now, I feel like over time, over the last few years, we have been slowly but surely trying to find our collective voice, the voice that we might speak out into the world, the light that we might shine out into the world. In a number of ways, we have gone through various sorts of processes to come to some sort of collective agreement. At the time of Proposition 8, which was 4 years ago, the church did something that had not done before. It took a stand on a political issue. It said, Proposition 8 is wrong, and here's why. And we stood on the rock of our open and affirming work. This was not something we had just decided in the last couple of weeks that this might be something that we believed in. It was actually something that had been discussed over and over again, with a lot of opportunities. We may not have been all together in the same room at the same time coming to that consensus, but over time, it has become part of our ethos, part of our culture. And because of all that work, we were able at that particular point in time to say, this is where we stand. Over time, because of the work of the Tears Ministry, we've also developed a consensus around our thoughts about torture and the use of torture by the US government. Not necessarily because we all gathered together in a big room and decided all at once, but over time, we were educated about the issue, people had an opportunity to discuss it, to respond, and a consensus was formed. And the Church Council voted to become part of the National Religious Campaign Against Torture. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to, and NERCAT, I can remember that part, but so we made a collective, an action of our collective voice. And I think we're at a time where we're feeling more and more that we need to respond. Because the voices that are being heard around Christianity in the world right now don't necessarily reflect what we believe, what we see and understand in the world. And I keep hearing that desire being articulated over and over again. As we've looked at the whole question of messaging and getting the word out, I've heard two parts to this process. The one part is that we just want people to know about this church because it's an amazing place. People should. There might be something out there for people that they would find interesting or attractive or helpful. So we want people to know about us. But I've also heard right alongside the desire to have the progressive Christian voice articulated in the world. Now, it turns out that's not necessarily an easy thing to do. But one of the ways it can happen is through the power of the collective, the power of the institution. If you notice when kind of pronouncements are made from various points of view about certain things, they're usually people who are speaking on behalf of an organization. Now, if you've got an organization that's pretty much a top-down organization where the people in charge have a lot of authority and they get to say whatever they want, that's not a hard thing to do. But we're not like that. Because we believe in a variety of ideas, we believe that everyone should have a voice. So how does that happen? Well, I believe that there are ways for us to create that consensus, as we have done in the past and will continue to do. And that it behooves us, it's actually our responsibility to be that city on the hill, to be the light. We are called to do that, not just to sit back, but to step forward and say what we believe. And so I think over the next bit, we're going to be doing more and more work as a community, the church council, the staff, everyone involved, to figure out, well, how do we do this? And how do we do this as a progressive organization that believes in a plurality of ideas, a number of voices, many different points of view? How do we do this? But this is the power of a church like this. Just think about it, that church, the church which is both us and something much beyond, provides that opportunity for us to create that collective voice. It's the institution, it's this thing that we support year in and year out. It's got a life of its own. This is pledge season, and I hope you hear the undercurrent in what I've just said. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I support this institution, because I recognize that it's a way for me to combine my light with other people's light and the courage so that I'm not just here by myself with my own little light, and I'm not sure that anyone ever agrees with me. But I can find other people who are articulating similar things, and suddenly I feel like, yes, I can stand, and I can share my little light with your little light, and it will be seen. Not just because it's light, but it's because it's a light that I think people might be looking for. It's a light that people might be looking for. This is one of the powers of these things that get created, and sometimes as progressive people, we're not too sure about institutions. We're just not too sure. But if you think about this church has a life of its own that is of us, but also beyond each and every one of us. And it will continue to be that rock. It will be sitting here when we're gone. Other people will come behind to hold up this collective, this collection, this assemblage, this bunch of people with a vision, with a light. We can be a city on a hill with something to say. And if we root ourselves in the gospel, in our tradition, it will be a message that has resonance and substance and power in a world that is hungry for that kind of message. I hope that you will recognize the way that you add in your voice, the way you add in your light to this collective light. I hope you'll recognize the possibility of this institution being able to speak on your behalf, saying the things that you would like to hear said in the world. I think we can do this. I think we can be as good at being a beacon as we are already at being a rock.